evening. Becky, how are you? Lisa, how are you? Just getting set up. It is April 20th at 9:19, just a tad few late, but we are rocking and rolling. Tonight is a big, huge night. I have a very special guest, a wonderful person, someone who is extremely involved in both justice and the justice system. And I've known this particular person for a long time. And yes, to the chat, I did dress up. It looks like we're going live here and a couple other places, possibly Instagram very soon. I did dress up because this person is very important. So anyway, the topic of tonight is we're talking virtual court. You're in a nightgown. That's great. So we're talking virtual court, and we've been hearing a lot of this on the internet, and certainly for us lawyers, there's another thing of Zoom, or even you and your friends are having Zoom parties and whatnot. But in reality, huge things are happening with the court system, with people's lives. So while some of us may say, we're going to go live and we'll have some fun on Facebook and we'll have some drinking parties on Zoom. People like me, people like this guest that's coming, people in the chat, we're doing real things that involves people's liberty, that involves fairness, that involves real punishment, and that involves huge consequences, both to my client, both to a defendant, but also to a victim, to a prosecutor, to a judge, in all, both civil and criminal. So this is huge. So in our court system, we're using something called Microsoft Teams. In Forsyth County and other counties, we're using Zoom and some other types of platforms. Both are phenomenal. But in real life, it is scary. In real life, there's a real judge, there's a real prosecutor, there's a real defense attorney, there's a real defendant, victim, and it's like, what do you do? So I was talking to this guest, and I was like, I'm actually nervous. I got to make sure, like, just on my screen, I got the computer, the iPad, the phone, I've got multiple overlays and video conferencing software and audio. I'm like, what if it goes bad, right? Like, this is my show. I don't want to screw it up, right? As amateur as it is, I mean, it can go really poorly. But on the flip side, if we make it sort of us, right? If we say, this is how I roll, this is me, and the same tone comes out on chat as it does in the courtroom, and you're just the same person, the same dude, is fantastic. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very special judge, Judge Leslie Abernathy-Maddox out of the Forsyth County State Court. And I'm just going to bring her on. Let's get right to the questions, because I know people want to talk. I know people have emailed me questions. So let's make sure I can do this right. It's my first time going live, and the first time going live with a judge. So let's see if we can get this. All right. Judge. Is it all right? Unmute.
Yeah, we're
perfect.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Awesome to see you.
It's good to see you too.
And how excited and nervous are you?
Both, very.
Okay, well, I'm pretty nervous too. So if I'm shaking or I'm saying the same thing 10 times, just let me know.
Okay.
So anyway, if you can introduce yourself maybe to our fine audience, tell us about who you are.
Sure. I'm Leslie Abernathy-Maddox. I'm one of the 2 state court judges here in Forsyth County. I've been a state court judge for 7 years. Before that, I was a prosecutor for about 19 years here in Forsyth County. First elected in 1990, 91? Does that sound right? God, that's crazy. Long time ago, 96. Took office in 97 as solicitor, and I haven't seen the courts change a whole lot in the time that I've been a part of the court system. And so we've seen more change in the last 4 weeks than we've seen in my 28-year career in the law. So that part is encouraging. I think it's one of the positive things. I know that God turns all things for the good of those who love him, and I believe that he's showing us some good things in this time of crisis.
So and just so everybody knows, Judge Abernathy was my boss when I was a prosecutor, and she was the best. And during my time, she was appointed by Governor Deal, right?
Yeah, I was. Sorry, my husband's in here trying to coach me on the phone placement because he's watching.
I like
from
you now.
Downstairs, and he came upstairs.
You're perfect now. So, so I think I was there for about a year, and then you rose to state court judge, and you've been rocking and rolling since. And now there's a new solicitor, and everybody's great, and we have a brand new courthouse.
Yeah, things have changed on that end a lot, obviously. When I referred to not a lot of change, I meant just in the way we do business. It's traditionally very paper-oriented, very mass calendar driven. And so we're looking at more changes, I think, hopefully that will last. We'll see. I think in our county, it'll depend on the individual judge.
So we were going for years, right? 10 years, 20 years, doing the same thing, going to court, submitting paperwork, standing there with our clients, standing there in front of judges. And I think it was March 13th,
right.
It all came to a halt, right?
March 13th was our last day of doing court in a normal way. We got the executive order on the 14th of March. So on that Sunday, the 15th, we had a meeting of the 5 of us trial judges here in Forsyth County at the courthouse that afternoon to figure out, okay, now what do we do? We knew something was probably coming, and we knew things were going to change, but that order gave us some really clear guidance.
So if you could just tell me in one word, I mean, I'll use the word chaos, but when this all happened as a judge, someone who's, I mean, your job is to, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but we need to move cases through in a timely and very, very, with a lot of justice. So when this sort of comes to a halt, is there a word or some kind of anything that pops to your mind, like, oh my,
panic.
What did you think? Panic?
Panic.
Okay.
Especially in state court, because we're such a busy court. And so you think, how are we ever going to catch up from the backlog that we're creating in this time frame? And you think, how, once you get past panic mode, it's how can we do things differently? How can we improve what we're doing so we can still get some things done, and we can at least address those emergency needs that the Chief Justice wanted us to keep addressing.
Well, I am glad, and I know people in the chat are, that even from a judicial perspective, panic is the word, because you've practiced law both on my side as well and prosecutor, but I mean, for us, we're like, okay, well, are the judges cool with this? Have they had years and years of training to get to this date, or are they going to be in panic as well? Zero.
No training.
No training.
No training until all of this happened, and then we have had some webinar type training about things to do. We've got guidance from NADCP, National Drug Courts Association, has sent us a lot of guidance on how to handle accountability courts. And then we've had some different trainings that were available but not mandatory on how to respond in the pandemic and how to ensure constitutional rights are still protected during this time.
So what platform is Forsyth using?
So we are currently using Microsoft Teams, but I talked with our IT director today, and they're working toward using Zoom for court hearings. in order to try to get those broadcast on the web. And because right now what we're having to do is have court in the courthouse where the judge is the only person not remote. I know one of our judges has done court from a remote location as well, but we have to then stream that into an open court in the courthouse in case any member of the public wants to come in and see court, because in the United States we have open courts. That's the law.
Right.
So in order to satisfy that, right now that's what we're doing, but IT is looking at going to Zoom so that we can broadcast to like my YouTube page that I've created for this purpose. But because it's the county and we're limited in what we can do with the county resources, their equipment, all the IT equipment, we can't put any program on there that is not approved by IT. And so I can't move forward individually and say, okay, I'm going to Zoom so I can put it out to my YouTube channel just because I want to. The only way I could do it is if I use my personal cell phone to record what was on the county computer and broadcast it, which would not be very effective.
Right. And I actually just saw last week there was a big court case down in Fulton County, and then when you click on the top for the judges, it says live stream, and each judge has their own YouTube for now.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when I was checking when a bunch of my colleagues were checking, it wasn't streaming live; it was down. So I guess we'll look into that. But that's a great idea, because it sort of gives me and other lawyers really who are maybe just bored or court watching and they want to pop around into each courthouse. I mean, we can do that when I'm in court. I could go to your courtroom just to watch, or if there's an interesting issue, or go next door to the other judges. So that would be cool when that happens.
Well, that's right. And, the open court, the law and the reason we have open courts, right? The whole premise behind that is that you can do that. Even if you're not associated with the case, you can go in and see how your court system is working, and what is happening in court. It is really important that we not lose sight of that in this time.
So if I can ask let me back up. So a while ago, your court moved to, you actually did jail to court cases, right? For jail day, right?
That's right. And we did it using video. We started doing that, probably a year and a half ago, just for efficiency purposes in terms of inmate movement and security. And it was just fantastic. And we did that. We started with that in my courtroom, but on a different platform. And so the courtroom again would still be open. And that worked out pretty well. I have to say, Microsoft Teams, you get much better audio and video, and the more you work with Teams, the more kind of savvy you become with it and understanding how to use it. I see Becky's on in the comments.
She is.
Becky told one of the prosecutors in my courtroom, Jenna Murphy, about using the pin on Microsoft Teams, so you can make sure you put the people up on the screen that are currently in the case involved, which is great. And Jenna told me about it last week, so I made sure immediately emailed all the other judges to say, hey, you can do this, and it helps very much in using the software.
Yeah.
So thank you, Becky, for that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I can say especially on my side, with our communications with the defense bar and even civil lawyers and whatnot, that we're at like a fine line as, do we offer our suggestions, or do we let the judges sort of, or the prosecutors, whoever, roll with what they have? And we're just taking the position of, why not offer it, right? It can't hurt. And in this case with Becky, it actually sounded like it helped. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great to have that information. And this all happened so quickly. None of us had used Microsoft Teams in the court system, so we really didn't know how to use it well. IT came, virtually, remotely. They installed it on all our computers, And when they installed it, in order to get everything done quickly, they canceled out all of your tutorials. So if you wanted to try to learn on your own, it was play with it or get on like YouTube and find a video. And so suggestions are great. That information from Becky, I have already used multiple times. I have
Awesome.
3 times, 3 different days last week. And I used it for all of those. So I appreciate
awesome.
it. And I hope people will bring me suggestions about how we can be more efficient and about the use of Microsoft Teams and Zoom when we get to that point. And for me, I know for civil non-jury day, I will probably still use this even after the emergency order ends in May. I don't know what anybody else will do, but I find that it's very efficient. And the lawyers on the civil side really like it. Now, we haven't done any criminal motions yet. We'll see how that goes in May.
Awesome. And just for those that are joining, so people are texting me out of county. This is Judge Leslie Abernathy-Maddox out of Forsyth County State Court here with us on Monday Night Law for my first guest, and I am so thankful and so happy. So we have a question that came to me. So what is your, have you seen any interesting virtual backgrounds? And if so, what is your position?
I have seen some, and some of them were really good. Like the other day, I was on one with a lawyer, had one up, and it really looked like an office. But then if you move very quickly, it will show what's really behind you, right? Because it's not keeping up with you.
Right.
So he turned to do something, and I was like, "That's not your office." So. But I've heard funny stories about people's cats and dogs, running behind them, and it picks up that movement. So then all of a sudden you can see a cat or a dog. A friend of mine had court with a judge in Florida last week, and she said that she knew the judge was also remote because she saw a cat climb across behind the judge. And she was like, that can't be in the courtroom in Miami. So I've heard some funny stories about them for sure.
So I think we should have a rule where you can possibly have them if you want, but they have to be not out there, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like,
sure.
Yeah. So sort of like dressing conservatively for court, and you don't want to have this, crazy anything back there. I saw an article on, I think it was out of Minnesota, where it was a drug case, and the lawyer had a big marijuana plant in the background. So that was his.
That's fun.
Not a real one, just a fake background. So it was kind of like, yeah, probably too much just from a professional standpoint. But hopefully this is. I got like Leo's football there and a couple posters that really have nothing to do with my political views, but I just like them. I think they're cool.
See, my theory is this. A lot of us didn't have home offices that we ever intended anyone to see, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, mine is in my sitting room of my bedroom. So I never intended people to see that area of my house in a professional capacity. And as long as, like I'm turned to the side, so you can see a very, very old picture of my kids behind me. So, you can always adjust, make sure that you have somewhat decent lighting so that you can be seen. Having a good microphone is really important, or making sure if you're using your phone, you don't run out of battery. That's huge. Yes. So be plugged in when you're using it. But I think that for the most part, whatever you have in your background, as long as it's not something, if it's anything you wouldn't bring into court, then you really shouldn't have it in your background, right? Because it's going to be weirdly distracting.
Right.
So, if you're okay with people seeing what you've got behind you on Facebook or YouTube, then good, go for it.
Awesome. Let me just run over to the chat. There you are in your tie. Yes, been wearing a tie all day. Been prepping for this live video hearing. all day. So you're in a nightgown. That's awesome. I encourage everyone to be comfortable. Very dapper. Thank you, Miss Becknell. I love teams. Paula says you are never nervous. So yeah, Paula, I'm generally always nervous when I'm in court. Now that nervousness lowers depending on where I am and how comfortable I am in the courtroom, but I still have a client. I could be best friends with everybody in that room, but if I make the wrong move, it affects the person to the left of me or to the right of me. And I take that, that's my goal in life or my goal at that day is to make sure this person, regardless, has the best possible outcome. So I'm nervous that, you could be too cool in the courtroom and miss things. So you always want to be attentive but yes, Paul, I'm very, very nervous, especially when we're getting into trial. Jury selection, I'm a wreck. I'm pretty nervous until I stand up. As soon as I address the jury, it all goes away. Like, hey, my name is AJ. I'm going to spend the next week with you. I'm done. I'm good. Right until that point, I'm sweating, just like I am for this live video. I'm all over the place. So, Judge Ebony, who's in our chat, is a court reporter for a local judge. And I was going to ask you, have you had any? Obviously, we have court reporters in our courtroom. What are your court reporters? What are they telling you about this? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Is it too hard to hear?
My court reporter really likes it. And we start out the session by letting all the parties know that a couple of things to put them at ease. We're not recording it, audio or video recording it, but it's being taken down by a court reporter who's on our session, just taking it down just like she would in the courtroom. So it's very important that no one speak over anyone, that you speak clearly, make sure you're close enough to your microphone or your telephone in order to get that sound clearly into the microphone. And it's worked out really well. So Mary is my court reporter, and she does a great job. She'll speak up if she can't hear anything. But generally, I'll be the same way. If she can't hear it, I also have a hard time. So I'll ask people to repeat themselves. But that's probably only happened 3 or 4 times
Awesome.
This whole time.
That's great.
And it's mostly when people look down and talk instead of looking at, up at the phone or the computer if they're on the computer.
Right. And I catch myself when you're on video, remember, this is your camera and this is the screen, right? So it's kind of weird. Like I'm looking at the camera and I really want to look at you. And then same
right.
with video, like audio, like I have a microphone, but you can use your computer, but it just usually sounds better. So everyone go out and get a mic if you can. So that's great. Christy, one of my investigators, says no beard app. So I think she's referring to my other Facebook lives when I go live or Instagram and I have my, I should do that honestly for court. I would wonder if certain judges that I don't know, I would wonder if they would know that I have a beard. So it would be kind of,
it's pretty obvious, AJ.
I know. As a judge, my paralegal, as a judge, what do you think about some of the states releasing prisoners due to COVID? So Lisa, I know you want to ask that. That'll be for another day. So we're going to have another one of those. I want to save that question. Becky, love Microsoft Teams. Christy, me. Good question. Is defendants' privacy a concern while using remote forums? So Bailey, I know that there was an issue down in Clayton County with Zoom, and they moved from Zoom, I believe, over to Teams. There's, of course, a lot of news about Zoom stealing data and whatnot. But honestly, here's my position on that. When we're in court, when I'm in court, when my client's in court, everything about us is available via public record, except my address and things like that. But I don't know what people are wondering about privacy. I don't know if that's a question. Judge, have you ever had so far someone say, I don't want to do this because of privacy? Like, has that
No.
come up yet? No. So
No, and again, we explain the process and why we're doing it. When I'm giving that explanation, I tell them, we're in a pandemic and there's a concern about infection, and that's why we're doing it in this manner, and ask if they have any objection. And everybody has been thrilled to do it this way.
so awesome. I love it. Becky asks, is Zoom harder? Zoom is different. Zoom is it's just different. I like Zoom better for one reason when it comes to court. You can have more than 4 people on the screen. So I think it's important that the witness should always be seen by both litigants, as should the judge, and the judge should be able to see everybody at once. So with Zoom, we can put on between 49 and 100 people. To me, the judge should be able to see everybody. The prosecutor and the defense attorney in criminal cases should be able to see each other, the judge, and the witness. That's the only reason why I like Zoom better. Teams, I think, is better for a courtroom, aside from the video, because you can attach files and send them to the judge, right? So,
and that's fantastic too, because we can get those things uploaded during the course of a hearing. So anything that needs to be signed can be sent to the judge. Any proposed orders for civil matters, any briefs, any affidavits, for instance, any kind of documentary evidence can be sent in that way for the purpose of the hearing. And it's also great if you're doing a plea. Our solicitor's office is really on board with this. And the team that works in my courtroom, they upload the accusation, the plea sheet, the habeas corpus notice, the first offender notice.
yes.
They even put in their plea negotiations so that everybody can look at the plea negotiations at one time. And that's super helpful that they do that.
Yeah, so Becky, I know that you and I talk about this all the time. Becky's my disaster recovery and prevention colleague. Her and I talk about COVID and court and all day, every day. So we've been thinking about this since March 13th. But if we can get something that mixes both of them, fantastic. But I do think that Microsoft Teams has to expand the 4 viewer. I think that's imperative, especially when you get into bigger cases. To me, it just seems like that should happen. But I guess we'll see. Zoom is awesome, Becky, says Paula. I love it. It shouldn't be because all hearings are public. We talked. Why is my mom on here? Lawrence, her mom's on here because she likes what we're doing. You should be on here too, as you are now, but be earlier. My cat wears a bow tie. Judge, I like the strategically placed pic of your family. Happy face.
It just happens to be in this corner of the sitting room, and it looks better than that side. There's more light this way.
Yeah, Lenny, AJ looking good. How are you, Lenny? So here's my parents. It's my mom and my dad on one. Thank you, Judge and AJ. This new technology will move the court backlog quicker and more efficiently and lessens the apprehensions of many of the non-professionals involved from being in the courthouse. It does. I really hope that when we progress out of this phase that we're in, the judges don't lose track of this is super easy. Like we can do a plea pretty much. We can do anything, anytime, so long as everyone's on board from anywhere. Right? I mean, we have to pay. The county pays a court reporter, pays a prosecutor, and in order just to get one thing done, all these people need to be present, right? And now
the courtroom open.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the courtroom has to be open, so we're paying deputies to man the courtroom. We're running the risk of what people might be coming in with and giving it to somebody else. It's right now, but even in the future, it's just efficient. You mentioned to me, AJ, that for you guys as lawyers, it's great because You can literally be in Cobb County in court 1 minute, and as soon as you're off of that call with them, you can be in Clayton County in front of another judge, then Hall or Gwinnett, and then Forsyth. Do that all without having to leave your house. Judges aren't waiting on lawyers when you do it that way. We're not calling going, have they left yet? Timing, seeing, they should be here by now. I mean, to me, on our end, it takes a lot of that stress and burden off. And for you guys, it takes stress and burden off too.
It's even for calendars, a lot of us lawyers here, I mean, like you said, we go to all different places, and some places we can be there for 2 hours. It could take 2 hours to get there, then be there for 2 hours for one thing, and then take 2 hours to go to the next place. Your day is done. And
right.
If our job is to be efficient, our job isn't to be efficient for ourselves as defense lawyers or as prosecutors. Our job is to be efficient to our client, and for the prosecutors to be efficient to the victim and to the state, and for judges to hold everybody to be efficient to everybody. And if we can further that, we all win, right? It's like, why not?
That's right.
I love it. So, Dad, good question there. Good comment. Zoom backgrounds are my fave. This is Courtney. You can look like you're on a beach or in outer space. Plus, you don't have to worry about what's actually around you. You can. I've seen very, very interesting ones. AJ, you're natural at this. I need to get you on TV. Plus, you got good hair. So this is the no gel, right? This is my Monday night no gel. So thank you for an educational study break. You're welcome. We know we have adjustments to the sound because Microsoft Teams, we have to remind people to speak up. So, Ebony, when you say that, and I saw this happen in court, I think that's interesting because as lawyers, the first thing we should do before we talk, before we open our mouth, is walk to the podium, right? If the judge tells you need to speak at the podium, walk there, stop, speak. So that way that microphone's right in your face. And if we don't do that, you're always going to say, well, can you speak louder? I didn't hear you. It's because the lawyer or the litigant they're going too fast. So everyone to calm down and talk. Hi, guys, getting in here late. Tony Saunders, hope all is well. Tony used to be a GSP officer when I was prosecutor for years. Can you interview the prisoners via tech like this, or do you have to be actual face-to-face? Good question. So when I talk to a client at pretty much every jail, there's a couple. You have to be either face-to-face or via video at the jail. So none of what we're doing. I'm pressing as many sheriffs that I know to move, just put a computer in the jail, just one. Right? But right now, the jails are just not equipped. And if they are equipped, in my opinion, they're using outdated software. They're not using 1080p or 720p. They're using terrible software, and it just, you can't do it. I'm a prepper. Hey, AJ from California. Hey, Mitch, hope you're doing well. AJ just jumps in as Superman. And I enjoy trying a case using live video like Zoom, bringing in my expert from New York City, my 2 witnesses from San Fran, opposing counsel from Denver. So many opportunities. So Mitch Jackson is an amazing trial lawyer out of California, social media guru, the best in the business. And he was talking the other day about depositions. Have you ever been called as a judge to a virtual deposition? Have you been involved in any of that?
No, I have not, though.
Okay.
I know that they're doing them.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of the new thing. It's much easier and cheaper.
Absolutely.
Paula says some days she feels like all she does is track lawyers down. Not me, Paula. I'm either in your courtroom or next door. Judge Bagley doesn't mind me yelling at attorneys. Are other states done before COVID? Can a judgment rendered be overturned? Dad, that's a question we're going to talk about. It's a legal question. We're going to get there at another time. But so, Judge, I hope everybody's enjoying this because this is fantastic. Again, Judge Leslie Abernathy-Maddox out of Forsyth County State Court. Great judge, very, very super efficient. And I am where I am right now because of the guidance and leadership she gave me back in the day. So I'm thankful to that. So I have two questions left that people are asking. First is, well, I think you answered it. What do you foresee for the future? You plan to, as much as possible, I mean, employ or use this in your courtroom?
I plan to, I know we're going to use it for civil non-jury matters. There will probably be some other things that we use it for. We can do it for pleas. We haven't done any criminal motions yet. We're going to see how that goes the first week of May. The only thing with doing the criminal motions that way is just if you have a lot of witnesses and evidence. And the one real question that came up is, what if the parties want you to watch the video, if there's a video in the case during the hearing? Sometimes, a lot of times, almost all the time, they say, we don't need you to watch it now. Here's what we want you to watch in chambers before you make a decision. But if they want to watch in the courtroom while they're just all sitting there on my computer, then yeah, that's kind of weird. But it's also weird sitting in the courtroom by myself, having court with Deputy Barber sitting there, simply because that's what we have to do, and
Right.
nobody else is in there. So I've done weird for the last 4 weeks in terms of this. I'm not above trying it. So we've got a plan for that first bit of May to try to get our criminal motions done so that we don't get further behind, and we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. Yeah, because we're I haven't run the numbers yet, but I know that we're going to be just a tad bit behind when we get going.
That's so funny, AJ. A tad bit.
Just a little bit, But
it makes me have palpitations just thinking about it. But I will also use this, AJ, for all my jail cases. I will not revert back to people in the courtroom. It works so well for that. Whether you're addressing a bond reduction motion or taking a plea, either way, it just works really well. And so we're going to stick with that in my courtroom. I can't speak for any other judge in the courthouse and what they will decide to do.
We can also have night court, right? We can do this.
Well, we can do this, but I'm not doing night court, man. And
awesome.
here's one thing that I would have to say for anybody who's done court with me. I think maybe one time I put my robe on, but generally I don't put my robe on because it just seems very weird to be doing court like this. Now, I'm always in the courtroom thus far because they don't have the live stream worked out, so I might as well go in, and I don't see anybody except Deputy Barber. So it's I'm certainly keeping my social distance. But I just feel weird about putting on a robe, just for myself, when most of the time you can only see about here up. And that just seems weird. So for some people, I know that that's really important, and having the seal behind you and the flag behind you is really important. But I figure everybody on that call knows that I'm the judge, and that's enough for me.
Got it. And then it looks like not to put you on the spot, but when do you have like a guess? I know we had some news today from the governor, but aside from that, when do you have an idea that, AJ, you're coming in on this day to pick a jury? Like jurors are going to come in. Because I've had 4 special set huge felony murder case, shaken baby case. A lot of big cases get moved, and the thought behind it is the judge says, well, we're going to try it in October. And I'm thinking, ladies and gentlemen, who wants to stay here for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sitting right next to one another? It's as a judge, when do you foresee maybe a jury trial coming through?
So the 5 of us have been talking about it. Obviously, we can't do anything until May 14th occurs. Our local order on the judicial emergency instructs the clerk not to send out any juror summons until after the expiration of the
Right.
statewide emergency order. Effectively, what that means is we will not have trials in Forsyth County for June because our clerk gives 5 weeks notice on juror summons. And so, in theory, we could have one the very last week of June, but I do not believe, I know that we're not going to have trials in June. I know that we've had that discussion. That is something we've all agreed on. After that point, no decision has been made. The 5 of us will have discussions and try to come to an agreement on that. We have discussed that we rather have a united front as to jury trials, but there is absent a statewide or a local emergency order, we won't be governed by anyone else. So each of us individually could choose something different. So that will just be something that evolves. We are meeting during this time every Monday afternoon, the teams. The 5 of us meet with our court administrator to get updates and to discuss issues that we're facing and things that we need to address and that kind of thing. And we've talked about trials. So I don't foresee any, July is a maybe. We'll have to see. We'll have to see, because here's the thing. Even if you, AJ, are comfortable coming into criminal court and sitting right next to your client that is not your personal friend, not somebody that you live with, not somebody that you know where they go all the
I
time.
hope it's not someone I live with.
No, it can't be, right? So it's not somebody that you know where they've been, what they've been exposed to for the last 14 days. And so, how do you, as the defense attorney, have effective communication with your client, which he or she is entitled to have during the course of trial, when we need to try to keep you 6 feet apart?
Right.
And how do we do that? How do we make that happen? How do we bring enough people in to strike more than one case at a time and keep them 6 feet apart in the jury assembly room? We're just not set up for that. No courthouse is set up for that. And no, in our jury box in state court, we can have you, if we have a 6-person jury with an alternate, we can have you sit, every other chair, and we can keep you separate once we get a jury struck. But then, we can't keep them 6 feet apart in the jury room. It's not big enough. We only have 2 rooms in the courthouse where we could send a jury to deliberate, where they'd be able to have 6 feet apart. And that's our 4th floor conference room and courtroom 502, that's the vacant courtroom. So even once we get to a place where there's no statewide emergency order, we still may have those social distancing restrictions put on us by the folks that know what to do, the epidemiologists and infectious disease specialists with the Department of Public Health. And so we may have those restrictions. And if we do, it'll be very hard to safely do a jury trial the way we've always done them. Can it be done? Sure. You could bring in a few jurors at a time and question them. It could take a week to try a 2-day case. You could do that. We've had some trainings and some information coming through about doing jury trials with a jury being remote and what that looks like. Of course, that makes all of us anxious because, jurors are just like me. They're like you. When you're sitting around watching something on TV or a question comes up, you look at your kid and you say, Google it. You look at your husband or wife and they're already looking it up, right? And that's what a juror is going to do if they're sitting at home on the phone or the iPad acting as a juror, and they can easily search anything they want on that iPad, on that phone, or another iPad or phone, and gather information that they're not entitled to have in the jury room. So for me, that's a concern. But there's certainly a wave and push for that on a national level. for us to begin to look at that.
Yeah, no, it's my buddy Lawrence Zimmerman. So Lawrence and I did. He's the president of the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and he and I actually had. I think it was the first ever Zoom conference with a judge, particularly in Fulton County, on a bond hearing with a very tough charge.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, I'm putting together a group of judges and lawyers to have a working brainstorming group to address these issues. He's actually inviting you to participate. What you're saying is refreshing and reassuring. So, Lawrence, I could put you in touch at some point with the judge, and that way you can send any invites that you have with other judges. But he's been working tirelessly with other judges trying to get up to speed, and I can't tell you how fast, just from my perspective, we go everywhere in Georgia, right? I mean, pretty much we travel all these different counties. We got up and running in Forsyth County, probably one of the fastest. Let's move to virtual and let's rock and roll, right? And it was a trickle down. It was judges were doing it, and I want to say it started in state court because we just had way more cases, and it was like, we have to do this. There is no alternative, and
right.
It was rocking and rolling, and I really personally think it's because of the way we started with jail cases, right? And we knew the technology was there, and then Forsyth County ran with it, and it's like, it's great to see that this county is leading, in my opinion, leading the way with technology. So I think you would be a great addition to that group. There was some questions as you were talking about. What about if lawyers feel uncomfortable in court? And obviously we can't talk about what other judges would do, but knowing you, and you can correct me if a litigant is not feeling well or doesn't. Has a reason why they can't go to court, such as, I don't want to get COVID. That's something that you bring up with them, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had before, the Friday the 13th, we'd had some people come in saying, I'm sick. I don't feel well. Some people just look sick. Some people just claim to be sick. And we just reset those cases because things were getting concerning at that point, even though we had no emergency order. So we have respected that. But here's the thing. Here's what we all have to remember about this virus. It spreads very easily. You may not have symptoms and you are contagious. You may never show symptoms and be contagious and have this. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get very sick. Most people have mild cold type symptoms, and they don't get tested. We don't have enough testing in Georgia currently to do appropriate tracing once we have a positive test. That stopped in the first, probably by March 18th, March 19th. I didn't hear anything else about contact tracing, because we simply weren't testing enough people, and we didn't have enough folks at the Department of Public Health to track down all the folks that you might be in contact with over the last 14 days. So while I know things are going to be changing, and most of that are things I don't have any control over, there is great reason to still stay home, wash your hands constantly, and to take good care to stay away from folks. And don't be afraid to wear a mask out in public. I mean, a lot of people are like, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to be seen like that. Like, they don't know who you are if you have the mask on. So use a little common sense and wear a mask if you're going to have to be within 6 feet of people. Use those delivery systems. I'd seen Becky had posted the other day about all the lunch or brunch she'd made for herself and where all it had come from had been delivered. Do those things and support some local restaurants with eating out by going to pick it up and bring it at home. and get cooked things when you do that to make sure that, if anybody was sick or didn't know they were sick and could pass the virus, that the food is cooked so that you're not worried about catching anything from your to go. If you're going to have a salad, make it at home. Wash your
Right.
lettuce.
Well, I've been getting texts as we're talking, and they're saying, well, AJ, I don't understand. If you don't have jury trials, that means that what are you doing? You're just staying home all day and doing nothing. uh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Jury trials are, they're there, but we have court about all kinds of other matters. Usually we have court when the two sides can't agree on something, so we end up having court. And the trial, of course, is when there's tribal issues. But yes, lawyers, criminal defense lawyers, me, like we still work even though we don't have court. I think my wife will attest to that, and I think that the judge will attest to that too. So
absolutely. And people have that misconception too about me. I had a Zoom meeting with my fellow teachers at First Baptist on Sunday. And even our youth leader, Scott, said, "Are you enjoying this time off?" And I'm like,
yeah.
I am not off. If anything, this is harder in a way because there's been that learning curve, right?
Right.
And so it's figuring out how to do things more efficiently, figuring out, how do I word the notice to the parties that this is how we're going to do it. And here's your date. Here's how you sign on. Here is your link. And here is all these things. Speaking of which, I got to create my meeting for Wednesday because I don't know how the other judges are doing it, but I personally am the one who creates the meetings in Microsoft Teams and sends out the emails, which is why if you have a case in front of me, you might get a bunch of updated emails because then I get emails and texts, add this person, add this person, add this person. But I'm doing it as efficiently as I can do it. It's been good though. Like I have a mentee that she is graduating in the next couple of weeks from college and going to law school. And she's been able to watch court, from home and ask questions about it and learn about court, which is pretty cool.
Well, as I've said in all of my shows, and I've told my wife, and I believe you and all my friends, to me, this is a terrible time in the world, but I've spent more time with my family doing things that I usually go to work from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. and my mind doesn't shut off because it's law. Everybody's running around. And now you can wake up, you can have fun, you can hang out. You know when court is. Court's always on time because the live stream just starts. Like if you're not there, you're gone. And it's nobody's waiting on anyone. And it's I love it. I don't love that's happening. I love that I'm able to adapt. Hopefully a lot of people are. And I talk to a lot of people every day about how to do things, and I learn from other people. But I'm truly enjoying it. And I think if you can be happy in this environment and not stressed, we're all stressed. We're all humans, right? It just so happens that I'm on one side of the courtroom and you're on the other side, right? But we're still, you and I are still going through the same, the live stream. What if this doesn't work? How is this going to do it? Is my microphone on? Am I on mute? Can you see me? And I think if we work together, the judicial system, our courtroom, your courtroom, it'll just go, and people won't look back, and they'll say this works because everybody's confident, everybody is helping each other, and everybody's happy. And I think that's where we need to be. So, Judge, I want to thank you so much. It is super late. It's the longest we've ever gone, and we still are rocking and rolling with viewers. I'm so happy and so thankful that you would do this. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. So,
well, you're very welcome. Thanks for asking me to. I think it's important to get information out to the public, to the lawyers. I know a lot of lawyers get on here and watch and they can spread the word about what we're doing and how it works. And I want them to spread the word that we'd like feedback, whether that's directly to me or one of the other judges or to Robin, our court administrator. We'd really like feedback. You know, I'm approachable, so anybody can email me or call me and give me feedback. And yes, the phones at the office or all the messages are being gotten by Paula. She was on here a little bit ago. Yeah, we're still operating the office in that way, just from remote locations. So there's a way to get everything done if you need it done.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon in the courtroom and on this courtroom. Again, thank you very much to everybody still with us. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is April 20th. It is now 10:15. I hope everybody stays safe. Earmuffs for the judge. STFI, everybody, please. Call me if you need me. And of course, if you need the judge, you can find her contact information on the clerk's website or just email me and I can provide it to you. So awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Judge Abernathy-Maddox, very, very much.
Take care.